Chapter 11, Part 1 of The Nightland by William Hope Hodgson. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Nightland. Chapter 11. The Homeward Way, Part 1. Now truly it did seem very light, after the horrid and lonesome gloom that did lie always in the bottom of the olden sea. And I saw that I was come out upon a part of the land that did be surely to the right of that place where I made entry into the seabed on mine outward going. And there did be a great plenty of fire-holes, so that mine heart was warm to see them. Yet did I mind to be wary in coming unto them, for as you do know, there did so oft be life of this kind and that about these fires. And I looked now down to the maid, and she upward to me, and did come more anigh to me, and truly she did be the most wondrous pretty and sweet, yet did seem very awearied and pale in the face, so that I made blame upon myself that I had overwalked her, for in verity I do think that I was so strong and hard as that I had been made from iron, and she but a dear and tender maid. Yet did she refuse that I should so reproach myself, and did but stand anigh to me and look at me with eyes that were very beautiful. And so I put mine arms about her and kissed her, and afterward looked again over the land that I should shape out our further journeying. And from that place where I did stand, there spread out all before me the blue shining that I had seen from the mouth part of the upward gorge, yet did it be a great way off. And indeed I should tell you in this place that it was by the glimmering of this shine within the sky of the night that I had steered, as we did come across the olden sea-bed. And truly it was but a broad thing to go toward, but yet did serve me in that it told me that I went toward the far side of the sea-bed, and made not to go all about in blind circles in the night. And after that I had considered a while, I did know somewhat where the gorge should be, and perceived that I should go into my left, but not overmuch, for indeed I saw the red shining of the Giant's Hole that lay at a great space that way, and surely I must go so that I missed the place of the giant so much as I might, and in the same going come not over near unto the blue shining that lay before me, across all the far part of that country, for in verity I mistrusted the place where that shining did be. Now when I had gained somewhat of knowledge where should be found the mouth of the upward gorge, I put mine arm about the maid, where she did stand so nigh to me, and very hushed, the while that I had looked about. And I pointed outward over the dark land unto my left, and told her that the gorge did be somewhere that way, a great distance off, yet utter out of my sight, and only to be known that it did be somewise there by the things that I did mind of, concerning my way after I came into the land. Now the maid having stood very quiet and looked all that time about her, and so had come to some knowing of the place where she did be in that land, for she to know the land some ways, as you shall think. And she asked me how I did mind to go, and truly I said so straight as we might, but yet so that we come neither too nigh to the shining, nor to the great fire-pit of the giants. And the maid bade me to look in the way that I did mind to go, and I looked, but yet there was nothing, save, as they did seem, certain fire-holes that had a green shining about them. And she said out unto me then how that there did go a tract of bad gas in that part of the land, that should be utter poisonous unto any, and this had been well known in the lesser redoubt by the reading of their instruments. And where the gas did go, there was there a green shining about the fire-holes. And she showed me how that the place of the gas went a great way unto the northwest, so that I learn now somewhat how the land did lie, as we do say in these days. And it was in all the northwest that the great blue shining did burn. And I asked Nanni how they named this, and she told me by no name save but the shine. And mine own made very earnest to warn me regarding the shine, and urged that we go no more thatwards than should be needful to our lives, the which indeed was no wish of mine, and her reason to be that the fixed giants did be within the borders of the shine, and all hid in the light thereof, save when the burning mist did roll this way or that. And I took a great heed of this thing, and did guess that these fixed giants were somewhat even as the great watchers that were about the mighty pyramid, as you do know. And immediately I minded me of that utter monstrous face that I did see amid the bright smoke of the shine, when that I came first into the land, and surely this had been one of the fixed giants that Nanni told me were forces of great and very horrid evil. And I asked mine own how far the place of the gas went across the land, and she pointed and made further explaining. And in verity, in the end, I saw not how I should come that way to the mouth of the gorge, if that I would keep offwards from the shine. Yet in a moment Nanni asked me how I did come across the land when that I searched for her, and truly, as I showed her, I had walked then by a sweet chance or guiding alway upon the far side of the place of gas, and so unto the olden sea-bed, and was in this way come free of the gas, and all unknowing of it. And at this telling the maid said that we go downward again into the bed of the olden sea, and walk some great hours below the shore, but in the way that should take us unto the south-west, and so until we were come beyond the place of the gas, and afterward up again into the land, and then to have an utter caution that we escape the watching of the giants who did be ever about the great red fire-hole, and by this plan very speedy to the entering part of the upward gorge. And truly this did be very good and sound, and such as I should have planned in a moment, for indeed I am not over slow in such matters, only the maid did be very eager and quick, and it was very sweet to me that she should thus plan, for in verity I loved alway the sounding of her voice, and to hear her have speech, and to plan and think, and so to show me the workings of her inward self and her dear qualities and human niceness, and to have part and lot alway with me in all things and thinkings. And we shaped to this plan that Nanni made, but at that time, as you do mind, it was somewhat of 17 hours since last we had slumber, and the maid was sore wearied, as I did see. And I showed to her how that it did be wise that we have our rest very soon, and so forward again in new strength and ability. And the maid did soon agree with me, for indeed she was very weary, and we made it that we should venture unto one of the fire-holes that lay no great seeming away a little upon our right, which was the northward way of that land. And we went toward the fire-hole, and truly it did be further off than we had thought, for it was a good hour before we came anigh to it, and indeed it to prove a very great and red-glowing shine that went upward into the night, out of the hollow place where it did burn among the rocks. And when we were come near to it, I made a sign to the maid that she be utter hushed, and I took the discos from mine hip, and went forward before her, and afterward to my knees and hands, and beckoned backward to mine own that she do likewise. And we came this way to the edge of the hollow place where the fire-hole did burn, and so were able in the end to look downward. And truly it was a great fire that burned in the earth in that place, yet, as I perceived very swift, there did seem nowhere any monstrous thing about the fire, the which set some peace upon mine heart, but yet not overmuch, for it was come afresh upon me that we did well to stay afar off from the fires of the land, in that it was about the fires that all living things did congregate. And I looked a great time, and the maid crept unto mine elbow and looked with me, and afterward we harked very keen into the night. But there was nowhere any trouble of the air or of the ether of the land. Yet I spoke quiet with the maid, and showed unto her how that we did well to stay offward from the fires, but truly she was so utter cold and chill that she did beg that we go down by the fire-hole, even should it be that we stay no more there than should put a warmth through the utter chill of our bodies. And in verity I was so bitter cold that I was all weak to go beside the fire, yet truly I do think that the shiverings of the maid was that which did force my heart to go against the teachings of my head, so that in the end we came down into the hollow and very swift unto the fire. Now truly it doth seem a strange thing to be so diverse-minded as this, when that, as you do know, I had been so long a search for a fire-pit. And mayhaps you shall perceive the better how my heart and brain did be contrary, when that I tell to you now how that I have belief that my spirit did even then be subtly set to warn me. And also, as all do know, it doth be easy to forget this warning and that of experience, by which saying I do mean that oft as I had come to know the dangers that did be alway about the fire-holes, yet when I did be far off from them, and mine own broken and a shiver with the chill of the land, the danger did seem but a small thing and afar off from my mind and unreal, but the cold to be doubly real. Yet when we did come even unto the fire-hole, then did come again all about my heart the truth of those dangers that had seemed, but a while gone, so little. And indeed I do hope you perceive me in this thing, and how that I strive alway to set unto you the utter truth, so that you shall go with me all the way, and lend me your nice understanding. Now when we were come down into the fire-pit, I went this way and that among the rocks that did be in the bottom of the hollow, so that I should perceive whether there did be any living creature there hid, that should mayhap come out unknown to work us harm. But indeed I discovered nothing of any greatness. Yet I saw 3 snakes, and there were beside 2 scorpion creatures, as I did name them, that neither went backward from me, nor came against me, but did bide where I saw them, each in an hole of the rock. And because I had seen these things, I saw that we should not do wise to sleep nigh unto the fire-hole, for the creeping things did mortally like the heat, and should be like to come upon us in our slumber. And indeed this did but uphold my caution, that we should be well actioned, if that we chose some other part to our rest. Yet, as you shall suppose, I said naught unto the maid concerning the creeping and the poisonous things, for I did mean that she have rest and happiness the while that we did stay beside the fire-hole, and afterward I should tell her, and so she be the more ready to see the properness that we go elsewhere to our sleep. But as you to understand, if that she not to see wisely, and be still intent to the fire-hole, I should have her to obey, for surely she was mine own, and I did love her, and did mean alway to have her to safety. Now presently the maid was something warmed, and afterward she slipped the scrip from my shoulder, and so had food and drink very swift to my need. And we sat together, and eat and drank, and the maid very sweet and quiet, as she did begin to eat her second tablet. And truly I had knowing that she did remember in all her body that I had whipped her, and indeed she did be utter mine. And oft as we did eat and drink, I looked this way and that, so that no creeping thing should come anigh to us, and presently, when we had made an end of our food, the maid saw that I did look about, and she then very swift to catch some of mine unease, and to stare over her shoulder. And indeed in a little while she saw a snake go among the rocks, and she then to be very eager that we find some place that should be secure from creeping things, and we to begin then to look for such. But in the end we stayed in the hollow, for we found a little cave that did be in an upstanding rock of the hollow, and the upstanding rock was, mayhaps, 100 good feet off from the fire, for the hollow was very great. And the cave did be a hole that was thrice my height up from the bottom rocks, and it was dry and sweet, and with no creeping thing within it, neither did there be any place to hide such therein. And when we were gotten into the hole, surely it did be very sweet and cosy, for the shine of the fire-hole did shine therein, and surely we had felt it a very haven, but that there was ever the fear of the land upon our hearts, and upon mine the more than upon the maid. For truly mine own did seem to trust me utter, and to seem that she feared not any evil monster, but to have surety that I had power to succour her in all ways. And truly this trust had been very sweet unto my heart, if that I had lacked somewhat of my terror for the safe home-going of mine own. And we slept that night as we had done before, and shared the cloak over us, for truly the fire-hole made no great warmth unto us, yet was it less bitter in that part than in the darkness of the land. And by that we had come unto sleep, It was 20 good hours since last we had slumber, and truly we did be very wearied, but yet came unto our rest with our spirits set anxious to hearken on danger the while that we did sleep. And we slept 7 hours, and did know suddenly of some matter that had need to waken us, and lo, in a moment I did wake, and the maid in the same instant of time, and there was a great screaming and crying out in the night, that surely affrighted us both, yet did hurt our hearts the more, for it did be the utter cryings and terror of poor humans in the night of that land. Yet might I do naught, but only wait that I learned more of the matter, for my duty was unto mine own, and I had no leave of rashness any more. Yet, as you do suppose, I was all shaken to go downward of the rock, and afterward to climb out from the hollow, that I should give some help unto they that did need help, but yet might I not leave the maid. And immediately there was a great roaring in one part of the night, and again another roaring in another part of the night, and lo, in a moment the roarings did be answered, and the roarings were the sounds of big and husky voices, so that it did seem that we harked to men so big as houses that did run and shout in the night. And the maid did begin to shake, and I put mine arm about her, and drew her backward into the hole, so that she did be into the shadow, and she to tremble like one that was broken in courage, for truly she had heard those sounds oft in the night in all the long and dreadful month that she had wandered. And indeed I was all shaken in my courage, for it did be the shouting of giants that I heard, and you do know somewhat of the utter horror and terror that did be alway in the heart that did hearken unto those monstrous voices, for you do know my tale. And there came in a moment a dreadful screaming out in the night, and the screaming did be the screaming of a young maid that doth be slain very brutal. And my heart sickened because of mine own, but my spirit did swell with a strange and utter anger, as that it should burst my body. And the maid to my side broke into an utter sobbing. And the screaming of the maid afar off in the dark did end very sudden, but in a moment there did be other screamings in divers places, and the hoarse shoutings of the great men, and the thudding of mighty feet that ran this way and that a chase. And the cryings of the humans came nearer, and the thuddings of the great feet. And in verity, in a little minute it did seem unto me that the sounds did be right upon the hollow, and I crept forward and peered out. And I felt the night to be full of people running, and immediately there passed by the hollow a clustering of humans that ran ever, and screamed and gasped and wept panting as they ran. And the shining of the fire-hole made them plain seen and clear, and they did be both men and women, and were but in rags, or utter naked, and all torn by the rocks and the bushes, and did seem indeed as that they had been wild things that did go by so swift and lost. And mine heart troubled me with the pain and longing that it did know, so that I had gone in a moment after those people, but that I should leave mine own, and put her to peril. And even while that I felt so utter in this thing, there came a great thudding of monstrous feet, and there ran 4 great men out of the night, and went past the hollow very quick. And 3 did be dull-coloured, and seeming much-haired and brutish, but the other did be an horrid white, and livid blotched, so that it did seem to my spirit that there went by a thing that did be a very man-monster filled of unwholesome life. And surely they did be gone from out of the shine of the fire in one moment, as we do say, and again into the night to their dreadful chasing. And when the thudding of their feet had gone a long way off over the land, I heard them bellowing, and afterward a far-away screaming that did have a death note in it, and I knew that those dreadful brute men did be taking the life from some poor wild humans, and afterward there did be the silence again. And surely it did come to me with a fierce impatience of sorrow that those people did be without spirit of courage, else had they turned them upon the giants, and slain them with their hands, even if that all had died to compass that slaying. For truly they should all die anywise by the giant men, and they had died then with somewhat to comfort their hate. Yet, as I do know, the peoples of the Lesser Redoubt had long been born of parents that were starved of the earth current through 100,000 years and more, and because of this thing they did surely lack somewhat in all ways. Yet was Nanni otherwise, but this not to prove aught save the rule, as we do say. Now sudden, as I stooped very hushed and troubled in the mouth of the little cave, I knew that mine own sobbed dryly in the back part of the cave, and I had gone to comfort her, but that in the same moment I saw a naked maid run very swift over the edge of the hollow, and did look over her shoulder as she ran. And she came to the bottom, and crept in under a ledge of rock that did be in that place, and she did seem utter worn, and gone of the spirit, and desperate. And I perceived in the same instant why that she did go stealthy and swift in that fashion, and to cower as for her very life. For there came a squat, haired man, so broad as a bullock, who did come silent down into the hollow, looking this way and that, even as a wild beast doth peer, very sudden. And the squat man had instant knowing of the place where the maid did be, and ran in upon her with no sound. And I paused not, but leapt all the great way unto the bottom of the hollow, which did be mayhaps 20 good feet and more, for mine anger was upon me, and I did mean that I saved that one, though I did be powerless to give succour unto those others. And I fell strong upon my feet, and had no harm of my limbs, for all that the leap did be so high. And in that moment, before that I had time to save the maid, the squat man ripped her, and she cried out once with a very dreadful scream, and was suddenly dead in the hands of the brute man. And my heart made my blood to burn with wrath in mine eyes, so that I had scarce power in that instant to see the squat man as I ran upon him. And the roar of the discos filled all the hollow, as I made it to spin, as that it did rage with an anger, and to be glut of the man. And the man came round upon me, and thought mayhaps to deal with me as it had dealt with that poor maid, but not all that wise, as you must know. And I swung the discos, and it did seem to sing and to cry eager in my hands. And I smote at the squat man, even as it did leap silent upon me, as a tiger doth leap, making no sound. But I gat not home the blow, for the man dropped sudden down upon the hands, and the blow went overwards. And the brute man caught me by the legs to rip me, and I cut quick with the discos, and it did have but one monstrous talon left unto it. And immediately it cast me with the other, half across the hollow, and I fell with mine armour clanging mightily, and the discos did ring like a bell. And by the graciousness of all good things I was harmed not by that monstrous throw, but was to my feet in one instant, and had not loosed the discos from my hand. And the beast man did be upon me with 2 quick boundings, and I stood up to the man, and it made no sound or cry as it came at me, and there did be a great froth of brute anger and intent come from the mouth of it, and the teeth came down on each side of the mouth very great and sharp. And I leapt and smote, so that my blow should come the more speedy, and the discos took away the head and the shoulder of the squat man, and the dead thing knocked me backward, with the spring that it had made, but it harmed me not greatly. Yet afterward I did know how sore and bruised I did be in all my body and being. And I came back very swift against the man, but it did be truly dead, and greatly horrid. And I went from the dead monster, and did go, all heart-shaken, unto the dead maid. And I took the torn body of the maid, very sorrowful, and cast it into the fire-hole. And I turned me then that I should look unto the cave, that I should know that all did be well with mine own, and whether she did have seen the horror, or be gone into a swoon. And lo, mine own did run toward me, and she had in her hand my belt-knife which I did give her before that time to be a weapon for her defence. And I perceived that she had come to be mine aid if that I did need such, and she did be utter pale, yet very steadfast, and not seeming to tremble. And I made to take her from that place, but she went beyond me and looked at the monstrous bulk of the squat man, and was very silent. And she came back unto me, and still so silent, and she stood before me and said no word, but my heart knew what she did be thinking, for I am not foolish, to have lacked to know what did be in her heart, though mine effort had not shown itself that way unto me before that moment. And I had no pretending of modesty, but received with gladness and a strangeness of humbleness the honour that her eyes did give to me, for indeed she did be so, that she might not give word to her joy of me and her glad respecting, the which is so wondrous good unto the heart of all men that do be loving of a dear and honest maid. And she said nothing, neither then nor afterward, but I did be honoured all my life after, when that I did any time mind me of the way that mine own looked upward at me in those moments. And afterward she did need and allow herself to come into mine arms, that I hold her from the trembling of heart which did come to her, after that there did be no need for courage. For surely we had both seen a very dreadful thing, and there was a great horror upon us. And I climbed upward again to the little cave, and did help Nanni, and when we were come there again we did rest awhile, and presently we eat each of us 2 of the tablets and drank some of the water, and indeed we were both utter thirsty. And in about an hour after that we had harked very keen a time, we came downward again from the cave, and had our gear with us. And we came up out of the hollow, and set forward with a great caution unto the olden sea-bed. And we came there in 2 long hours, for we went very slow and with constant harkings, for the fear of the monstrous men was upon us. But there came no harm anigh, neither did we perceive any disturbance in the night of the land. And we went down an hour into the olden sea-bed, and did go now the more swift, for our fear was something eased from us, because that we had come away from that place where we had perceived so great and dread an hunting. But yet had we all care about us, for the giants surely to be everywhere in that land, but yet, as I do think, they to roam more often nigh to the fire-holes, for the humans did surely wander in such parts that they have warmth of the fires. And after we had gone downward an hour into the sea-bed, we turned somewhat unto the south-west, and went for 12 great hours, and did never be any huge space from the shore, for it did run that way, as you do know. And I made to steer by the shinings of the land, and with advices from mine own. And in the end of the 12th hour I did count our distance, making that we did walk somewhat of a certain speed, and by the tellings of the maid we did be surely come beyond the place of the land where the poison gas did lie. And by this it did be something after 17 hours since we did sleep, and surely we did be very ready to have rest, for we had gone forward strongly, and with anxiousness, and truly my hurts did be come upon me, so that my whole body did ache, for the quick fight had been bitter, and I had been thrown very hard and brutal, and indeed it was wondrous that I had not been all smashed, only that the armour did save me. And this doth truly show how hard and strong I did be. And Nanni did speak upon this, and was oft a wonder, and at the time did beg me that I make some rest to cure my hurts, for she had not conceived that a man did grow so strong and hardy. And in verity the men of the lesser redoubt did be soft-made and lacking of grimness, as I did perceive, both through my reason and from her tellings, for they did lack the strong life that doth breed where is the beat of the earth-current, as we to have in the mighty pyramid. And this thing I have said somewise before this time. And because that we did be so wearied, I said unto Nanni that we find a place for our slumber, and she very willing, as I have shown, and to counsel me likewise. Yet did we search about in that gloom for a great hour more, and found no cave or hole to give us a safe refuge for our sleep. And when that we could not find such, I told Nanni that we should put the boulders together somewhat, and so have them about us, that we be greatly hid. And in truth, even as I began to tell her my plan, she did have the same words in her mouth, so that we caught our little fingers, there in the dark of that grim land in the end of the world, even as she and I had done oft in the early years before that eternity when that she did be Murdath the Beautiful. And we did both be silent, and after that we had wished very solemn and earnest, we said each a name, even as a lad and maid shall do in this age, and so to laughter, and kissed one the other. And truly the world doth seem not to alter in the heart, as you shall think, and this was what I did find. And we set to and gathered together the boulders which did be very plentiful in that part, and she carry those that did be thin and flat, and I to roll those that did be great and round. And I made a place that did be long and narrow, and afterward I set the flat stones round the sides, that there be no little hole by which any creeping thing should come inward to sting us in our sleep. And afterward we gat inside, and surely it did be very cosy, as we do say, and yet not so secure as I did wish, only that I could not shift to plan aught better. And indeed it should keep off from us any small thing, and should be like to save us from any monstrous brute treading upon us, but otherwise it did be but a poor affair. Now we eat 2 of the tablets each, and drank some of the water, even as we had done in the 6th and 12th hours, and afterward we shared the cloak for our slumber, and we kissed very sedate and loving, and charged our spirits that we wake if that any horrid thing should come anigh to us in our sleep, and afterward we did be gone very swift to slumbering, and suffered no harm. And I waked 7 hours after, and surely I did ache very bitter, as I did move my body, for the bruisings did be gotten hold of me. And I slipped away from the maid very gentle, for I had mind that she sleep a while more, as I did mean that we make a great journey that day. And after I had harked a while, and perceived that there was no evil thing anigh, I went outward of the stones, and I walked to and fro, and moved mine arms, that I be eased somewhat of the stiffness and ache, but surely it did seem that many hours must go ere I should make any speed of travel, for I did be all clumsy and slow, and nigh to groan with the pain of going and aught that I did. And I minded me that I should do somewhat to ease this thing, lest that I cause us both to come to an harm by staying over long in that land. And I went back into the stones, and gat an ointment from the pouch that I did carry, and surely the maid did yet sleep. And I went outward of the stones again, and stripped off the armour and all my garments, and I rubbed my body with the ointment, and surely the pain did be so that I groaned at this time and that, but yet must I rub good and strong, so that I die not of the cold of the land, and beside I was greatly anxious to cure myself. And sudden, as I did rub very strong and savage, and heeding so well as I might that I groaned not, the maid did speak close beside me. And indeed she could see me but dimly, and had waked sudden to hear my groaning, and I was not to her side. And immediately she had thought that some evil thing harmed me, and was come in an instant that she be with me. And she cared not that I be naked, but was utter in anger that I strove to do this thing alone, and with none to aid me, and all uncovered to the chill of the land. And she ran back into the stones, and brought the cloak and put it about me, and was so angered that she stamped, and had no impudence, but rather as that she did be minded to have tears. And she sent me back into the sheltering of the stones, and gathered mine armour, and brought these things after me. But the discos I took in my hand. And she took the pot of ointment from me, and made me to lie, and she rubbed me very strong and tender, and kept me warm with the cloak. And surely she was a wise and lovely maid, and utter mine own. And in the end she asked me how I was, and I said that I did be different, and she hurried me that I be clothed very quick, for she did be sore afraid that I should come to a chill. And when I was gotten again into mine armour, she came to me and showed me where I did lack wisdom, and spoke very straightly and gentle and serious, and afterward kissed me and gave me my tablets, and to sit beside me. And we eat and drank, and I with a new lovingness unto mine own, and she somewhat as that she did mother me, but when I put mine arm about her she did be only a maid. And we did be thus with but little talk and a great content. And afterward we gat our gear together, and went from that little refuge that we had made, and in a while we did go upward out of the olden seabed. End of Chapter 11, Part 1. Chapter 11, Part 2 of The Nightland by William Hope Hodgson. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Nightland. Chapter 11. The Homeward Way, Part 2. And when we were come again to the top of the shore, the which we did in 2 good hours, I looked over the land a time with mine own anigh to me, and I perceived that the great red fire-pit of the giants did be no mighty way off unto the south and west, and surely in a little moment we saw that there went monstrous figures against the shine of the mighty fire-pit, and we stooped unto the earth, for it did seem that the light did be like to show us standing there, though truly we did be afar off, as you perceive. Yet mayhaps you do share with us the utter horror and distress that those horrid men did cast about the heart, and so have a kindly understanding of our fear. And all over the land, in this place and that, there did be the small shining of little fire-holes and pits, that did be alway red, save in that part where the poison gas did lie, the which we had now come safe past. And beyond the fire-holes was the great shine, that lay from the west unto the north of all that land, and in verity we did need that we steer so that we come not anigh to it, neither unto the great red fire-pit of the giants, neither unto the low volcanoes, which were beyond the great red fire-pit, as you do know, and some ways unto the mouth of the upward gorge. And the way of our journey was between the west and the southwest of that land, and to be made with cunning and wisdom, that we come clear of all unseemly danger unto mine own. And I asked her concerning this thing and that of the land, and surely she told me so much of terror that I was half in a wonder that ever I did live in the end to come unto her. And it was because of the things that she set out to me that I perceived how we must come nowise anigh to the low volcanoes that were upon this side of the mouth of the upward gorge, for it had been known alway in the lesser redoubt that there went very horrid men in that part that did be called wolf-men, but whether there did be any such thing in that age she had no knowing, for she told me things that did be set down in the records and the histories, and truly no man of the lesser redoubt had found heart in 1,000 great years to make a journeying through the land, for the desire of glad and dreadful adventuring, such as our young men did be oft set to, though it was not all such that went. And because there did be no adventuring for so monstrous a space of years, there was no certain new knowledge of that land of that age. And this thing is plain to you, and needing not of many words, which do so irk me. And Nanni set out to me how that the shine was conceived to be a land where evil did live for ever, and whence came all those forces of evil that did work upon the lesser refuge. And afterward she did quiet, so that presently I perceived that she did weep to herself, because that her memory was all new stirred by my questionings. And I took her very gentle into mine arms, as we did be there kneeled upon the earth. And after that time I asked her no question, save as it did be needful to our health and life, yet oft did she tell me this thing and that of her knowledge, to be for mine help and guiding. Now we went forward, going a space toward the northwest, so that we came the more clear of the place where did be the great red fire-pit of the giants. And we journeyed with a care alway that we show not ourselves over plain unto the light that shone over the land from the great pit, and oft we did creep a while over this stark place and that, and went nimbly amid the bushes that grew oft in great parts. And we made 6 hours this way, and did then have pause that we eat and drink, and truly it was 9 hours since first I did wake, yet had we made no pausing, because that we were so set to our journeying to come clear of the place where did be the giants. And after that we had eat and drunk, we went onward again, and made now unto the southwest, for we did heed that we go no more into the northwest, because that should bring us over near to the shine. And in the 14th hour of that day's travel we came to a part where the land dipped downward into a broad valley. And surely it did be very dark down there, and did be seeming shallow, yet truly of a great deepness. But we went that way, because that it did be a weary long journey to go around the place where the valley did be. And the valley had a different darkness from the gloom that went alway in the olden seabed, for the gloom of the seabed did be ever of a greyness, but the gloom of this valley had a greater dark within it, yet did the air seem more clear. And we went downward 3 hours into the valley, and stopped then that we eat and drink, and truly I had not paused then, but that mine own did insist, for our methods did be like else to go all adrift, and we to be lacking of proper strength. And this was wisdom of the maid, but I to be a little irked like and restless, and this mayhap because that my blood did itch me, because that it did be so full of the poison of my bruises. And it was gone now of 17 hours since last we did sleep, but yet did we be ready to go forward, that we come so quick as may be out of the dark of that valley, for there did seem nowheres any fire-hole to make a light, only that in this place and that there did be a little blue shining, as that there burned a strange gas in this part or that. Now in 2 hours after the time that we did eat, we stopped both of us very sudden, for there did be some vague and curious sound in the night. And we went very swift to the earth that we be hid and harked, but did hear nothing. And in a while we to go onward again, yet there did be an unease upon our spirits, for our spirits did perceive something afar off in the night, but yet had we no surety in this matter. And we went forward through a great hour more, and did pass in that time 2 places where the blue shining did be, and truly it seemed as that a low gas hung to the earth in this part and that, and made a slow burning, having neither noise nor spurtings, but slow as that it did smoulder and be all to shine and luminous. And oft there did be a strong smelling of a bitter gas, very horrid in the throat. And in the end of another hour, while that we were a space off from one of those gas shinings, there went past us at a distance, as it did seem, people, running in the night, as that they did be lost spirits, yet with a rustling very soft, so that they did be like to be barefoot. And I thought mayhap that these did be some of the peoples of the lesser pyramid, yet did they be only as that shadows went among the blue shinings. And I pondered a moment whether that I send my voice over the valley, to question what they did be, but yet had caution and harked through the utter silence of the night, for I had no surety of aught. And surely in that moment that we harked very keen, there did be a sound afar off in the night of the land, and it was as that we had heard the sound before, and in verity our spirits had perceived the sound those 2 hours back, and now our bodies did wot and perceived that we had known it subtly before that moment, and the sound was as that something went spinning in the night. And a very great terror came upon the maid, for she did know the sound, and the sound was that which did show that one of the great evil forces of the land did approach, and the sound had been known alway in the lesser refuge to show this thing. And indeed mine own spirit had been half to know that a power of evil did come through the night, but yet was the assurance very terrible, for how should I protect mine own? And the spinning came toward us, and was presently in the valley, and it came swiftly across the dark of the valley. And my heart was all broken within me, because that there had been happiness with us but a little time gone, and now there did be our death anigh. And mine own gave me the knife that I had given to her, meaning that I slay her in the last moment, for she did heed even in that moment that she be not gashed horridly by the terror of the discos. And I took the knife, and I kissed not mine own, but stood there, very shaken and desperate, and gripped her fast unto me, scarce heeding the hardness of my gripe. And alway I looked unto the way of the coming of the sound, and presently did unbear my wrist where the capsule did be. And the sound of the thing's spinning came anigh across the valley, and my heart did dull and my spirit go black with my desperateness, because that this thing must be, and because that I could nowhere see hope that I should save mine own. And of a sudden the maid put up her arms, and pulled me downward, and kissed me once on the lips. But I wot not whether I kissed her, for I did burn with despair, and was all adrift in my being. Yet was there a sharp comfort that mine own dying did be so nigh. And the maid stood gently against me, so that she did be convenient unto my hand. And afterward I remembered this thing, and do you pray that you be never to have such a matter on your hearts. But indeed there was a wonder in this thing beside the horror, so that my memory doth be alway knowing of this wonder, and mayhap you do see with me and love mine own also in your hearts. And in the moment that the maid stood thus as I have told, I perceived sudden that there did be a little glowing in the night, and the glowing was pale and horrid, and there was no more any sound of the spinning, only there did be, as it were, the trunk of a great tree, that did show in the glowing, and the trunk of the tree came toward us across the darkness. And I turned the maid from the tree, and she did flutter a little in my hands, as I did know, scarce knowing, for she perceived that she did be going to die in that moment. And I had my body thus between the evil thing and the maid. And lo, the tree came no more anigh to us, but went backward, and the pale glowing did fade, and the tree no more to be seen. And I cried unto the maid, very husky, that we did live, for that the evil power was gone off from us, but she answered not, and did be heavy against me. And I held her, and looked alway about us, lest the tree come in upon the other side. And as I looked this way and that, I saw naught, and afterward in a moment I searched the night above, lest that the thing come from above. And behold, I saw that there abode over us a clear light, as it were a clear burning circle, above us in the night. And my heart did leap with an holy joy and an utter great thankfulness, and I was no more in fear of the tree. For in verity there fought for our souls one of those sweet powers of goodness, that did strive ever to stand between the forces of evil and the spirit of man, and this matter have I shown to you before this time. And concerning this holy defence, I have thought that it should not mayhap to have had so strong a power to save us, if that we had shown an over weakness and fear, but because that we did rather stand so well as we might to make battle of escape from so dire a destruction. And surely this doth seem but a sane thinking unto me, but yet without proof, and to be said to you only as the shapings of my thoughts. And this the chief end of that happening, that the holy circle did truly deliver us and burn through 12 great hours above us, and by this do I know that the evil power hovered anigh to destroy us all that while. For indeed it doth not be a proper of reason to suppose that such an utter wondrous thing did be needlessly over us, save to be a shield of great and lovely force against a waiting evil thing. And surely you do see this wise with me? And truly, so soon as my spirit and reason perceived that we did be no more to suffer from the evil thing, I remembered that I did know that mine own had swooned. And in verity you shall mind how that she did face her death so utter sweet and brave, and had given no cry, but made quietly to help me in that dreadful moment, and did stand brave and gentle to the stroke. And so fell into a swoon, as you have seen, because that she did suffer 100 deaths, as she did stand so brave, waiting to be slain, for the blow did be so long delayed, yet to come in any moment. And I gat her to come to unto her life again, and I set the lovely tale very swift to ease her, and surely with love and warmth, and kissed her with a great joy. And I showed how I did honour her for her good courage. And she to weep a little with the ease come so sudden upon her, and afterward to kiss me upon the lips 100 times, and to need that she be very safe in mine arms, because that I admit that I do so dread an office to her. And surely I do wonder whether you perceive all that did be then in her heart. And the holy light that did be over us she did watch with a sweetness of awe, and rest did come more great upon her in the heart, as she did learn how sure was the seeming of that lovely power to deliver us. And presently we made forward again in the valley, and did go steadfast and newly loving each to the other, and so through 12 great and body-weary hours. But our hearts could never be done singing within us, nor our hands to cease from the hands of the other, because that we did so crave each unto the beloved. And in the 9th hour, a monstrous way off in the dark of the valley, there did seem as that there went a far and dreadful screaming in the night, and it did be as that our spirits perceived the sound of something spinning in the night, yet faint and a great way off, but yet had we no surety that we did truly hear the sound of the spinning, only we did be so shaken in the heart, for truly there was some horror done unto humans, downward in the mighty darkness of the valley. And to think upon the sound of the spinning was to be in a shaking trouble of the spirit, and to bless the quiet and holy light that went above us in all that time, and to ache only that it should stay to be to our protecting. And surely it did be plain that there were the signs of great forces in that land. And 3 hours after that time when we did hear the far-off screaming, we were come up over the edge of the valley, and did be once more unto such light as did be general in that land, and truly it did seem a wondrous lightness after so utter a dark. And we did be all exhaust, and mine own drew her feet so weary, that it was as that she must go no more until we did rest, for indeed it was 33 hours since last that we had slept, and a bitter trouble and work there had been in that space, as you do know. Now we had eat some of the tablets a few hours back, as we did walk, and had drunk some of the water, but had made no rest, for we did crave only that we come free of that valley, and now it was needful that we rest, if but a little time. And I minded that we find some place where I should have a hot pool, that I be able to bathe Nanni's feet. And surely we came in a while to a hollow place, and there did be 2 dull-burning fire-holes in this place, and a hot bubbling spring, the which did seem to be a rare thing in that land, so that we were the more fortunate to perceive it. And I made mine own to sit, with her feet in the hot spring, for it was not over hot, and did seem pretty natural to my taste, as I did prove in the first. And also I did search about the hollow, lest there be any harmful creature near by, and this you'll have truly supposed, because you do know the methods of my journeying. But yet did I not have so much care as did be proper, for I was so dulled in the mind by reason of my weariness, but indeed there came naught to work us any harm, and so we came to no suffering, through mine aches and dullness. And I sat beside the maid, and made her to eat a tablet, and saw that the cloak did be nice about her, and her head to rest against my knee, and I laid the palm of my hand to be as a pillow, because of the armour, to ease the hardness. And I eat with the maid, and we both drank after, and so there came back somewhat of our strength. Then I took the maid's little feet, and rubbed a portion of the ointment from the pot all about them, very gentle and constant, and so did they be new rested and eased, and she presently fit again to the journey, for I was strong set that we go quickly hence out of that land, and stay no more there to sleep, lest we come unto destruction. And when we had rested an hour, I put the shoes again upon the maid, and made them secure, and so gat my gear about me, and made to the journey. And lo, as we did leave the hollow, I looked upward into the holy light, and behold, it was gone from us. And by this thing I supposed that we had come free of instant danger, but yet did there be to me a seeming of nakedness and unprotection, as you must perceive. And because that the light was vanished, I was the more set that we come speedy out of the land, and we went forward at a strong speed, and had the great red fire pit of the giants to our rear unto the left, and a mighty way off in the night. But yet I did wish it the further. And before us was a small ridging up of the dark land, as I did judge, because that our view of the lights and the shinings was bounded, and to our left at a great way the low volcanoes, and somewhat to our right across all that part of the land went the cold and horrid glare of the shine. Now in a little while I felt that the ground did be sloped upward before us a little, and by this thing I saw that I had known aright, for that there did be a ridge that hid the land somewise over unto the part where I looked to find the mouth of the upward gorge. And we went up this slope at a strong pace, because that I was so eager that I found where we did be in nearness unto the mouth of the upward gorge. And surely I was something forgetful in mine eagerness, and came somewhat ahead of mine own, who did make to hide from me that she did begin to lag, because that her new strength was near gone from her. And sudden there did be a very dreadful cry to my back, and I came round in one instant, so quick as a light doth flash, for it was the voice of mine own, and all my being did suddenly burn with fear that kindled through me in a moment of thought. And lo, mine own did struggle terribly with a yellow thing which I perceived to be a man with 4 arms, and the man had 2 arms about the maid, and with 2 did make to choke her unto death, for she cried out no more. And I came unto the man with a quick leaping, and stopped not to pluck the discos from my hip, and surely I did be very strong, and mine anger and rage to make me monstrous, for I caught the 2 upper arms of the man, and brought them backward in an instant, so fierce and savage, and so wrenched upon them, that I brake them in the shoulders of the man. And the man roared and shrieked, even as a wild and dreadful beast should cry out, and came round upon me with the 2 lower arms. And surely it was a mighty and brutish thing, and so broad and bulked as an ox, and the lower arms were huge and greatly haired, and the fingers of the hands did have the nails grown into horrid talons, as that they should grip very bitter. And it caught me by the thighs, to rip me upward, as I did fear, but yet this did not be the intent of the man, for in a moment it caught me round the body, and on the instant I got the man by the great throat, and the throat did be haired, and so great as the neck of a bull. And I strove with mine armoured hands that I choked the man, and surely I made it to suffer great trouble, yet I could not harm it in the life. And so I did be an horrid minute, and fought with the beast with no more than the strength of my body. And it was as that an human went with his hands to slay a monster so strong as an horse. And the breath of the man-beast came at me, and did sicken me, and I held the face off from me, for I had died with horror if that it had come more anigh. And surely the mouth of the man was small, and shaped so that I knew that it did never eat of aught that it did slay, but to drink as a vampire. And in truth I did mean that I chopped the man to pieces, if that I have chance to the discos. And I did sway this way and that, as we did struggle, and surely it was as that the man had never made to use the lower arms, save to hold unto prey, the while that it did use the upper arms to strangle, as I do think. For all that weary minute of the fight the man made not to loose from me, that it should tear my hands from their grip to the throat, but made vain waggings with the arms that I brake, as that it would use these to the attack, but surely they had no more power to do hurt. and sudden it put forth an utter power about my body, so that mine armour did be like to crack, and truly I had died in a moment, but for the strongness of the armour. And the man hugged me thus for an horrid time, the while that I did hold off from me the brutish face, and gripped very savage into the haired throat. And lo, the creature did work slow in the brain, and in the end loosed from me, abrupt, and went back with a leap, so that my hands did be ripped from the throat of the beast. And in one instant it did be back unto me, and gave me no moment to free the discos. But I made anew to fight, and shaped as I had learned in the exercises of mine upbringing, for truly I had been alway deep in practice of such matters. And I slipped from the great hands of the man as it did try to take me by the head, and I hit the man with mine armoured fist, and put a great power and skill to the blow. And I went instant to the side with a swift stepping, and evaded the man, and I smote the man again, and took him very savage in the neck. But all the while grown very cold and brutal and cruel, for I was set to the slaying. And the man-beast came round on me, and lo, I slipped the grip of the great hands, and my body and my legs and my arms did work together unto that last blow, so that I did hit so hard as a great hammer. And I gat the beast in the throat, and the beast went backward to the earth, even as it did think to hold me. And lo, in a moment I was free, and I plucked forth the discos from my hip, and the yellow beast-man grunted upon the ground, and it rose up again to come at me, and it stood and did grunt, and did seem as that I was gone mazed, for it did make other sounds and an horrid screeching, so that truly by the way of it I conceived that it cried out unknown and half-shapen words at me. And in a moment it came again at me, but I cut the head from the beast-man, that was in verity an horrid monster, and the man died and was quiet upon the earth. And truly in that moment the distress of mine efforts and mine utter tiredness and the ache of the bruises took me, so that I do surely think I rocked as I stood. But yet was my head strong to think, and my heart set in anxiousness, for I wotted not how great an hurt had been done upon mine own. And I ran to her, and came to where she did be upon the ground, and surely she was all huddled, and had her hands very piteous to her throat, that did be so pretty. And it did shake me in that moment that she was truly slain, for she was gone so utter still, and as that she did be broken unto death. And I took her hands from her throat, and surely it did be a little torn, yet not to be much, or so that it should loose her of her dear life. And I strove that I steady the trembling of my hands, and I gat free of mine armoured gloves, and made that I feel whether her throat did be deadly hurt. And in verity it seemed not so, only that my hands did so shake, because that I was so frightened for my own, and because that I was but new come from the battle, and because of this I had not power of touch to assure me. I made then that I quietened my breath, which did yet come very full and laboured, and I put mine ear above the heart of the maid, and lo, her heart did beat, and the horridness of my fear went from me in a moment. And I had the scrip for my back very speedy, and some of the water to fizz, and I dashed the water upon her face and upon her throat, and surely there did be a little quivering and an answering of her body. And I strove with her for a while more, and she came unto her life again, and in the first she was all alack, as you may think, and immediately she began that she remembered, and she then to shake. And I told her how that the four-armed man was surely dead, and could harm her no more, and she then to weep, because that she had been put to such shock and horror, and held by so brutish a thing. But I took her into mine arms, and so she did come presently to an ease, and I perceived in all my being that she was as a little ship that doth lie in harbour, for she did cling and nestle unto me, and did be safe with me in all her heart and body and belief, and surely she was mine own, and I to have glory in that knowing. And presently I put her from mine arms to lie, yet so that she might not perceive the body of the yellow beast man. And I made clean the discos from her sight, and afterward I put on the scrip, and I took the maid to mine arms again, and had the discos in my hand beside her. And she made protest that she should truly walk, for that I was all aweary, and she come to her strength again. And indeed I carried her a certain way, and did then put her down to her feet, and truly her knees did so tremble that she had not stood let be to walk. And I caught her up again, and I kissed her, and I told her that I did be surely her master in verity, and she mine own baby slave. And truly you shall not laugh upon me, for I was so human as any, and a man doth talk this way with his maid. And she did be quiet and sweet and to obey wisely, for she was gone very weak. And this wise we did go, and I to say loving words in the first, but afterward I did heed more of my going, now that she was something eased and at rest within mine arms. And I did peer everywhere about, lest that some other evil thing come outward of the bushes to have at us ere I did wear. And truly the bushes grew here and there in that place very plentiful in great dumpings. And presently I was come to the top part of the ridge, and lo, a great gladness took me, and some amazement. For there did be lights that did be in the mouth of the upward gorge, and they did show me that I was come anigh to that place. Yet had I feared that we were surely a dozen great miles off, and now I to learn that we did be scarce of 2 or maybe 3, as I did judge. And I told this thing to the maid, and she rejoiced in mine arms, with a deep and quiet thankfulness. And I set forward then at so good a pace as I might, and I was come into the mouth part of the upward gorge in about an hour, and surely I did be very weary, for it was beyond 36 hours that we had gone since we last did sleep, and there had been sore labour and terror to our share in that time, as I have told. And I turned in the mouth of the gorge, and told mine own very gentle that we did take our last look upon that land, and she asked that I put her down to her feet, and I put her down. And therewith we stood in that place, and mine arm about her, and so did I support the maid, the while that she looked silent over the dark of the land. And presently she asked in a very hushed voice whether that I knew where the lesser pyramid did be in all that darkness, for she was all adrift of her bearings, and was as a stranger, because that she had never looked upon the land from that place before then. And I showed her where I thought the pyramid to stand hid in the everlasting night, and she nodded, very quiet, as that she did think that wise also. And so a time did pass, and I knew that Nanni said good-bye forever unto all that she had known of the world in all her life, and she did be whispering a good-bye in her soul unto her dead. And I was very hushed and deeply sorrowful for the maid, and did understand, for in verity there should no other human look upon that land of terror through all the quiet of eternity. And the maid did lose all her young life into that blackness, and the father that was her father, and the grave of her mother, and the friends of all her years. And there went death in the land even then after those that did live. And mine own shook a little within mine arm, so that I knew she strove that she be brave to weep not. But afterward she made not to cease from her tears, and truly I was there to be her understanding, and she did be sweet and natural ever with me, for she was mine own, and did be hourly the more so. And presently I moved a little to sign that we go downward of the gorge, and she stayed me one moment, that she look once more over all that land, and afterward she submitted, and turned with me, and did break into very bitter sobbing as she did go stumbling beside me, for the sorrow of memory did fill her, and she was truly a very lonesome maid in that moment, and had come through much dreadfulness. And in a minute I stooped and lifted her, and she wept in mine arms against mine armour, and I very silent and tender with her, and carried her downward of the gorge for a great hour more. And presently she was grown calm, and I knew that she slept in mine arms. And in this wise we made farewell of that dark land, and left it unto eternity. End of Chapter 11, Part 2. Chapter 12, Part 1 of The Nightland by William Hope Hodgson. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Nightland. Chapter 12. Downward of the Gorge, Part 1. Now I carried the mate an hour downward of the gorge, as I did say, and I was then grown so weary that I near fell as I walked, and stumbled every while, because that I had lost somewhat of guiding in my feet, the which did show mine utter alackness. And I saw that I must come very swift to a place for slumber, or that I did be like to fall headlong with the maid, for I nigh slept as I walked. And I began that I give attention to the sides of the gorge, and surely I had gone that hour all in a dream, for I was fresh waked, as it were, in that I did give my will to perceive aught, and when I did come to have power to attend, I knew that I had gone even as a sleep-walker, for the gorge did seem a fresh matter unto me, and as that I had come awake sudden to find myself a walk in that strange and narrow place. And presently I saw somewhat where I did be, for I minded the memory of mine outward journey, and truly I have a good power to know and remember a way that I have gone. And I saw that there was a great and ruddy fire-hole anigh to me, and I was all sure that I perceived certain caves in the wall of the gorge, near to that fire, as I passed it on mine upward way. And I had been given a mighty longing of heart at that time, that it be given to me that I should bring safe mine own out of the peril that beset her, and have her unto just such a place for her slumber on the way of our journey backward. And surely I tell you this thing as a child in pleasure, for truly it was a wondrous happy matter that my desiring should be like to have a true ending, as indeed it did seem was truly to be, if that my memory had set me aright. And I went onward somewhat, and lo, I to be right, for the little caves did be there, a little past the great fire-hole, and there were 7 of them in the left side of the great cliff of the gorge, and one did be as that it were very cosy and a place of sure safety, if that we could win unto it. And truly, as I did conceive, we had come safe from the evil forces of that land, but yet did I mind that there was no surety in this thing, and neither did I know but that some monster should come downward of the gorge out of that land, and so work our deaths as we did sleep, if that we have no sure place for our slumber. And indeed I had wished that we were come a greater way downward of the gorge, but this might not be, for I was all adrift with weariness. And truly, if that we gat upward to the topmost cave, there did be few monsters that should have power to come at us, ere we be warned of their coming. And afterward they should be like to come upward against the discos, and this should be indeed a thing difficult, as you shall conceive. Now it did be needful that I waked the maid, and I kissed her, as she did be in mine arms, and surely that dear one did kiss back again in her sleep, and was yet asleep, and truly I did love her with all my being, and I kissed her again, and shook her very gentle, and so had her to wakefulness, and told how we did be come to a place fit for our slumber. And she to look about very sleepy, as I set her to her feet, and then to upbraid herself that she did over to slumber, the while that I did labour with her carrying. And in verity I kissed her again, as she did stand making to steady herself, and looking so pretty with the sleep that did lie yet in her eyes. And she to kiss me very dear and all mine, and even then scarce proper come to wakefulness, and did say with something of a little dear abandon that she did love me utter and forever. And afterward I climbed to the topmost of the caves, and told mine own the while that she walk up and down a little, so that she come to a full awakedness. And this I was careful to, because that she should have a need of all her powers that she come safe upward unto the cave. And when I was come to the cave, lo, it did be so sweet and dry, as did make glad my heart, and there did be a warmth in the cave, as that there went a fire somewhere through the rocks anigh. And the light from the fire-hole did make a reflection inward, and so this did seem a place safe and fit to our slumbering. And I came downward unto Nanni, calling that the cave was very proper for our use, and presently I gave her mine aid to the climbing, and so we came in the end safe into the cave, and truly we did feel very safe and happy. Yet before we did sleep, I set free the scrip and the pouch, and took the straps and went downward again into the gorge, and I gat a good boulder, so heavy as I might carry, and strapped it to my back, and came upward again to the cave, and the maid very grave and anxious lest that I slip to my hurt. And when I was come to the cave again, I set the boulder in the mouth of the cave, and did balance it so light upon the edge that a touch should send it rolling downward. And by this devising I conceived that any beast or monstrous thing that should climb upward whilst that we slept should be like to set the rock adrift, and mayhaps the rock to work and harm to such, but the chief end to be that I should be swiftly waked by the noise. And then I did turn that we go to our slumber, and lo, the maid had spread the cloak upon the rock that we should sleep upon it, for truly there did be no need that we have it now to our covering, because that the cave did be so warm, as I have told before. And surely there did be no cause either that I should have the cloak for a bed, for how should I perceive any softness from the cloak through all the sternness of mine armour? But yet did I see that the maid had made a couch that should be for the two of us, and did be so sweet and natural, and to lie by me, but yet to preserve her sweet modesty, and to do the thing with no thought, save that it was natural to our hearts, and that she did long alway to be anigh to me, but yet mayhaps scarce full conscious that her heart did prompt her in this thing. And in verity I loved her very dear. And surely Nanni showed me the where that I should lie upon my side, and when I had obeyed, she kneeled and kissed me on the lips, very sober and loving, and she laid down then upon the cloak beside me, and truly we had both gone to sleep in one little minute, as I do think. Now I did be waked 12 great hours after by the fizzing of the water, and lo, when I looked the maid was not beside me, but did make ready our simple eating and drinking. And she laughed at me, very sweet and tender, because that she loved me so, and did be so glad to have me awake to her, and she came over to me and kissed me, very bright and loving upon the lips. And after that she had kissed me, she kneeled beside me and looked at me, very dear and tender, so that I knew in a moment that she had waked a while gone, and watched me, somewise mother-like, as I did sleep. But how I knew this thing, I am not sure, save that my spirit did know, or that her thoughts did have tongues unto mine. And truly I needed that I be so loved, and all of you to say like with me. And I put up mine arms to her, as I did yet lie, and she did not deny me, but came into mine arms, and did snuggle there so sweet and happy and gladly, and with so true a delight, that it did be plain how she did love in all her body and spirit to be anigh to me, as I to her. Yet truly, as you do mind, the armour did be upon me, so that I feared to take her very strong in mine arms, lest I hurt the dear maid, and surely the armour did be a stern matter for her to nestle unto. But yet mayhaps did the sternness something please her woman heart, and yet again mayhaps to lack. And presently she made that she would go from me, and I loosed mine arms from her very ready, because that I did heed alway that she have full sweet liberty of her dear maidenhood, and I to be watchful sufficient unto this end, yet always honest and wholesome, and not over-pondering even in this my care, and this proper intending you shall ever perceive, if that your hearts do strive to hearken unto my heart, which doth speak alway before you. And the maid went from me, over to where she had put the cup of water and the tablets, and I to make to rise, that I looked that the boulder did be safe untouched in the mouth of the cave. But she called unto me that I lie backward, for that she did mean gently to spoil me that once, and that I have no heed to the boulder, or whether there did be any monster or beast anigh in the gorge, for that the boulder did be safe as I did balance it, and nowheres any creature to sight in the gorge, for she had looked oft since waking to this end. And truly I obeyed and lay back, and did like that I should be spoilt as we do say. And Nanni brought the cup of the water and the tablets over to me, for she got them from the scrip before I had it to my pillow, in that while when I had gone downward for the boulder. And surely even when she brought the cup she would not have me rise, but took my head upon her knees, and kissed me once very dainty on the lips, and I very happy to be so loved, and wishful no otherwise. And she took a tablet and kissed it and gave it to me, and afterward touched another to my lips, and had that to be for her own. And so we eat and were very glad and happy, some ways as children are happy, and our hearts all at ease. And presently we eat each our second tablet in the same wise as the first. And truly I did be kissed more than once, and afterward we drank each of the water. And when we had made an end, Nanni told me that I moved to stand, and surely I wondered, and I stood up, and lo, I near cried out with the pains of my bruisings, for I was all gone stiff in my sleep, and as that I did be more sore than ever, and this to be because I had fought again, as you do know, and surely had been hurt more by the four-armed man than I had known. And I perceived then that Nanni had supposed that I should be thus pained, and had given dear thought to the matter, and truly she had the pot of the ointment ready, if that I did be very bad, that she rubbed me. And she gave me aid with mine armour, and afterward eased me with my garments, and surely I did be utter bruised in the body, by reason of the violence of the yellow beast-man. And the maid had somewhat so tender and sweet in her eyes as she looked upon the bruisings, that I did be very happy and to glow with contentment. And she had me to lie, and made me in comfort with the cloak, so loving and grave, so that I was as a child that doth be cared of by his mother. And she did rub me very skilful and gentle for a great hour, until I was all refreshed. And in verity she was a lovely wise maid. And as the maid ministered unto me, I lay alway very restful, and harked to the low sound of the muttering of the fire-hole that did be in the bottom of the gorge, and alway I did feel as an happy child that doth be clothed in love and guided in wisdom. And presently, when that the maid had ended her dear care, she put by the ointment and gave me her hands very dainty, that she mean to aid me to rise. And surely when I was come again to my feet, I was all eased, and to have movement with no great pain, and truly this made me wondrous pleased, and to feel new couraged, for I had been troubled that I should be so helpless, in that I did be the protector of mine own. And when I had tried my limbs, and found them to be in command and ready, I looked about for my garments. And lo, the maid brought me my spare body-vest from the pouch, and had it upon her arm to give to me. But surely she denied me a moment of the vest, and stood before me, and had an admiring and wonder, very sweet and honest, because that my arms did be so great and hard with muscles. And indeed I did be very strong, as you have perceived, for I did be alway in affection of the exercises that were taught in the upbringing of all the peoples of the mighty pyramid, and by this explaining you shall understand that I was like to be strong, but indeed I owed the straightness and shaping of my body to the mother that bore me. And afterward, in all my life, had I taken pride of my body to be of health and to have strength, and surely this is a matter very fit for pride, and to be told bravely and with honesty. And the admiring of the maid was very sweet to me, and in verity I did be to deceive if that I said otherwise. And in a moment she dropped my body vest, and put out her hands to me that I take her into mine arms. And I took the maid into mine arms with a great gladness, and with somewhat of humbleness that I was nowise good enough to hold her, for my heart was young, and I loved her very dear and youthful. And she did lie there very quiet and happy a little, and surely I did find presently that she kissed the great muscling of my breast very sweet and sly where her face did press against it. And lo, in a moment she came free of mine arms, and gave me an aid with my garments, and afterward with mine armour. And when that this was done, she stood off from me, and she looked at me, half shy and half of sweetness and naughtiness. And she came then in a moment, and put her hands upward to my shoulders, and so stood her eyelids something down over her eyes, and did steal a little look up this time and that. And lo, in a sudden moment, before I did wot, she was to her knees before me, and did weep, and I down very swift to kneel with her. And I asked her not why she wept, for I perceived that she did have joy and glad happiness and sweet trouble of her man, and that she did be a true woman, and one part of the woman did worship, so that she did be strangely humble and nigh to be shy, and another did love, and need that she be an eye to me, and a third to have a calm wisdom. And all did now be a tremble together in her heart. And I knew that I did be truly an hero to her, though but usual to all others. And my heart was wondrous proud and wondrous humble, so that I was in the same moment upraised and to feel dreadly unworthy. But I made no pretending to discredit myself to her, but only did resolve that I win alway her dear respect, and I did be natural and truthful of my manner and without foolish denial of her sweet worship, for she was utter mine own, and it did be a pitiful thing if that I seem otherwise than an hero unto her. But of you I ask kind understanding, and to call me not a thing of conceit, because that I did understand. For truly I knew my faults, even so well as you, that do know all of my going. And you to look backward upon the love days, and to mind how that your maid did ever to make you great in manhood with her dear belief and uplooking, and so shall you conceive of all my feelings, for we do be all so human in this matter, and to meet on a dear natural ground, as you will say. And truly in a little time mine own did be steadied, and wiped her pretty eyes, and nestled to me a while, very hushed, and to need that she be close. And I to have her gentle against mine armour, and to be in my heart as that I did be her father and her lover in the one man, and surely to be silent and joyful that I lived. And presently I slipped her shoes from her little feet with my right hand, the while that she did rest within my left arm, and I condemned myself that I had thought not more swift to this end. But indeed I had thought upon it while that Nanni rubbed me, and had intentioned this wise, but afterward forgat, as you shall understand, that have been with me alway. And truly mine own did be hurt that I say aught to my blame, and I to cease, but yet to feel reproached by my heart. And when I had looked to the maid's feet, I tied on her shoes again, and we gat together our gear, and afterward we came down from the cave with a great care, because that it did be so high up in the cliff of the gorge. And afterward we made downward of the gorge, and had a good care to our going, and so much of speed as we could make, that we come something off from the dark land of the lesser redoubt so quick as we might. And in 6 hours we had gone very well, and we stopped then that we eat and drink, and afterward I looked again to the feet of the maid, and I bathed them in a great rock basin of warm water that did be anigh to the place of our eating, and afterward I put the ointment about them very thorough and gentle for a good while, and so she had some ease and comfort. And afterward we made onward again, but now we did go pretty easy, for I had considered the notings of mine outward journey, and so did perceive that we should be but 6 or 7 hours off that part of the gorge where did be the slugs. And I was minded that we rest and sleep, ere that we make through that dire and dreadful place, for that we should be 12 great hours and more to go through and to have no rest or pause until that we did be safe outward again, as you shall think. And so did we need to be strong and well rested, and this to be wise also for the feet of the maid. Now surely the maid did be in delight of the fires of that part of the gorge where we were come, and she had beside a rest of the soul, in that she had feeling that there did be no evil force to trouble us to our destruction. And I bothered her not yet awhile with tellings of the horrid place that we should to journey through in a while, as you do know. And so we did go, and alway with a good caution, lest that some beast or creature should come upon us, and alway with the fire holes before and behind, and in the air of the gorge the little whistlings of steam that did spurt out in this place and that, and a good warmth in many parts by reason of the fires, and odd whiles a smelling of sulphur, but not greatly, nor to our trouble, and alway the low muttering of the fire-holes and pits, and the red lights, and the dancing of the shadows when that we did go by a fire-pit where the fire did frisk and burn lively, and upon either side the grim walls of the gorge going up measureless into the night. And so we were gone presently pretty comfortable for 6 good hours since last that we eat, and we made halt and eat and drank, and I showed the maid how that we should make a short journey that day and sleep, and so be ready to the horrid journey through the dark part of the gorge where the slugs did be. And we made search then that we have a safe place to our slumber, and surely I perceived where we did be, for we came upon that same cave where I did sleep after that I was come free of the slugs, and that we were come no farther doth show how easy did be our present going, and this you do know. And there did be the spring where I washed, and the fire-hole anigh, and truly they were not like to be gone away, as you shall say. Yet did we exclaim, very natural, for the maid did be so deep in interest of the matters of my coming and to be at once that no other place should serve for our rest and slumber. And indeed this was a natural thing, and the place so good as any, save that I did wish it had been upward unto a high place of the gorge, as you shall understand. But yet might we block the mouth part of the cave with boulders, somewise as I did before, and so to have a defence against any thing that should make to enter upon our sleep, or at the least to be waked by the falling of the boulders. Now mine own went inward of the little cave, which did be very light from the fire-pit that was to the front, but before that she did go, I made a swift search of the place, that there should be no creeping thing, and truly it was sweet and free. And the maid did be strangely taken that she should come to the veritable place where once I did lie on mine outward way. And truly I do understand, and so shall many that do have these feelings about matters. And afterward we went into the hot spring that was in the hollow of the rock anigh to the fire-pit, and I saw that there did be no snakes, neither any of the rat things anigh. And so I had the maid to sit very comfortable on the side of the pool, and I freed her shoes, and bathed her feet, and afterward rubbed them very steady with the ointment, and so for a good time and alway to keep a looking out upon the gorge. And presently, when that I had taken a loving care of her pretty feet, I tied the shoes again upon the maid, and so back to the cave, and the two of us to carry boulders according to our strength. And when we had a sufficient, we builded a rough and clumsy wall, after that we were gone into the cave, and the wall rose nigh to fill the mouth of the cave, and made us to be somewise in darkness, but yet to feel in safety. And I had a good heed to make the chinks of the wall very close in the bottom, so that no small creeping thing should come through unto us whilst that we slept. And afterward Nanni set the scrip and the pouch to be for my pillow, but had the bundle of her torn garments to be for her own purpose. And I perceived that she had the water-powder and a pack of the tablets to her hand for our waking, that she might prepare our food, and mayhap to wake a little before me, so that she have all ready to greet me from my sleep. But indeed I said naught to show that I knew, for I saw that this thing did give her a dear pleasure, and truly it was very sweet to have her to these gentle duties, that did be to her so sure and quiet a delight. And mine own bade me that I lie, and she put the discourse upon the outward side of me to mine hand, and with a dainty and fearful touch, for the weapon did be very dreadful unto her thoughts, but yet a comforting thing to abide for our defence. And afterward she covered me with the cloak, and kissed me very sedate upon the lips, and then to her own side, and to come very nice and happy under the cloak, and so to her rest. And presently she did sleep, as I perceived by her breathings, and surely it did seem to my spirit that she had an utter and dear content in this arranging of our slumber, so that she did be all at peace in all her being, because that she did be nigh unto me, that did be her own love. But indeed I could not sleep for a time, and surely in a while mine own did nestle unto me in her sleep, so sweet and dear as a child, and likewise as that it did be her right to be so anigh unto me, and I to be that I should put mine arms about her. But indeed I moved not, neither did I kiss her, as I did wish. For truly I should be very manly with mine own maid, that did be so trustful and utter mine in her sleep. And presently I was over unto slumber also, and stirred not for 8 good hours, and did wake then to the hissing of the water, so that I knew mine own was awake before me, as she had planned, and was making ready that we eat. And when she saw me move in the half light, she gave out a little word of joy, that I did be again to knowledge of her, and she came over and put her arms about my neck, and kissed me very loving thrice upon the lips. And in verity it came to me in that moment that I had been kissed a while gone in my dreams, but scarce to know it. Yet I perceive now that mine own had taken a naughty advantaging of my slumber, that she kissed me to her own pleasure. Yet did the maid say no word of her naughtiness, and I to be likewise, but to resolve that I waken perhaps on the next time, and so catch her in her sweet and secret delight of me. And truly this doth sound quaint, but to be true. And I rose and took down the half of the wall that did be across the mouth of the cave, and afterward looked out. But there was no sight of any horrid thing in the gorge, save that one of the rat things did slumber, very gorged seeming, upon the side of the little fire-hole. And afterwards we eat and drank, and the maid then to rub me as before, for I was greatly stiff on my waking, as you shall think. But she came not into mine arms presently, as I did hope, but only kissed my shoulders when that she had finished, and so bid me to dress. Yet after that I was dressed, and had mine armour full upon me, she must come unto me, and she slipped her 2 small hands into the one of mine, and so stood by me very silent. And sudden she put up her lips very quiet and passionate, that I should kiss her, and she kissed me once, as it be as that her spirit kissed mine, and all her being came unto me, and she gave me but that one kiss, and afterward slipped her hands very gentle from mine, and made to the gathering of our gear. But truly I that loved her so great knew that a tumult of love did be hid in her heart. And indeed she looked once at me in such wise, that I grew near to a true humbleness of heart, because of the honour and love that did be in her eyes. And surely it is a very little thing to die for such an one as mine own did be. And by this saying shall you perceive my heart in that moment, and that I did pant, as it were, that I do some deed of love to show my love. And truly this is but a natural desiring and human, and the cause proper to the uplifting of manhood. And surely you shall all mind you of such feelings in the past love days, that I do pray should be never past. And when we had our gear together, I left it in the cave, and took mine own over into the hot pool that was anigh to the fire-pit, and she to exclaim upon the rat thing that did be yet aslumber upon the side of the fire-pit, and I to say that the thing did be no cause for fear, but rather indeed a good friend, in that it was a devourer of snakes, as you shall mind. And while that we talked, I bathed the little feet of Nanni, and surely as I dried them upon my pocket-cloth I was taken that I should kiss them, and surely I kissed them, and they did be very shapely and dainty, and all eased of travel by the care that I did take to this end. And afterward I rubbed them with the ointment for a good while, and so had them again into the shoes, and the maid very quiet, after that I had kissed her feet that did be so dainty, but yet with a sweet naughtiness in her way, as my heart perceived, though she did nothing, neither said anything, to this end, and was truly very obedient and orderly to all my wishes. And we went back then to the cave, and the maid put the pot of the ointment back into the pouch, and she buckled the pouch and the scrip upon me, and the discos I had upon my hip, for I went nowise anywhere without it, as you shall suppose. And she had the little bundle of her clothing for her burden, and truly I was ready that she should carry so much, for we did be to act wisely, and she well able to carry so small a thing, and I better to have my hands alway free to the discos and to the needs of the way. And we went downward of the gorge at a strong speed, for there did be somewise of 15 hours' good journey ere that we come out upon the far side of that place where the monsters did be, and this did be 3 hours to the upward beginning of that place, and 12 hours' journey then, in the least, that we should take to go through again into the light of the gorge below. And this I did reckon from my notings of mine upward journey, as you do know. And I made all clear to the maid of the thing that did be before us, and made not to hide the danger and horror, but yet to make not over much of the same. And she to walk close beside me, very sweet and trustful, and to say that she feared naught, so that I should be there to have care of her, but only that she did fear harm for me, and yet to have confidence that I should slay all hurtful things that should be like to trouble us. And truly I did kiss her for her dear belief and love. Now in the middle part of the 3rd hour the air of the gorge did begin that it was heavy, and to have a seeming of fumes that stang something upon the throat odd whiles. And there were presently less of the fire-holes, and soon as we did go the more downward the beginnings of a great gloom, and to have smoke therein that made us to feel husky. And in the end of the 4th hour we were come truly far downward within the gloom, and to be as that we groped in a fog of distaste, and to know not how we went with any surety, for oft there did be an utter darkness about us, and awhile the shine of a dull glowing fire-pit upon our sight that did show us the gloom and dread of that place. And we went alway very hushed, and the maid to my back, but I did halt now and this time, and make to know how she did be. And surely she whispered very brave to me through the dimness, and once did slip her hand into mine, and I to take off mine armoured glove for a little moment that I hold her hand and give her nice assurance. But in verity there was terror in mine heart, that did be a terror far beyond the trouble of mine upward way, and surely I was shaken newly with every danger, lest that I should lose mine own, or she to come to any hurt. And indeed you shall perceive how I did be, for so should you be in a like case, and in truth it doth be an utter anxiousness and suffering. Now when we had been 2 hours in the dark part of the gorge, I smelled of the dread and horrid stink that you do wot of, and surely a great fear came upon me, for I perceived that we did come among the monsters, or that one came anigh to us. And I whispered unto the maid that she halt, and we stood very hushed awhile, and surely the stink did grow, and to be very dreadful in the nostrils, so that I felt mine own maid to shake somewhat with the fear and disgust that this thing did make in us. And presently the stinking did ease somewhat from about us, but whether there had gone past us a monster slug I have no sure knowing, for there did be no fire-pit anigh to that place, so that there was a great darkness all about. And surely there was a great slowness and wetness of the air, and dismal drippings that made desolation in the silence, and the feel of strange growths upon the boulders, as you do know, and oft and horrid slime and dankness, and the stink to be everywhere, so that we knew a constant disgust and fear. and alway the fumings of sulphur that did seem, in verity, to beat down upon us utter heavy and sore upon our lungs. End of chapter 12, part 1.